Dear all esteemed participants, thank you first of all for sparing your precious time for us today, and thanks to TİDE as Turkey's leading institution for bringing us together. As a stakeholder that has been working on sustainability more than a decade, we believe that sustainability is more important now than ever in this rapidly changing world. It's a great privilege and opportunity to play a vital role in helping people and organizations thrive in this new environment, and to encourage leaders to make a positive shift towards trust, sustainability, transparency, and ethical behavior in business. Above all, we would like to evaluate sustainability within the framework of our aim to realize our profession. As we have adopted the motto in every business, we would like to talk about internal audit for good. Today, I feel very fortunate to be partnering with Mr. Michel Key for discussing on sustainability and the role of internal audit on sustainability. I want to introduce you briefly Michel Key. He is risk consulting partner in Mazars, Netherlands, and global head of internal audit services in Mazars. Previously, he was head of internal audit at global companies and previous chairman of the Dutch chapter of the IAA. He sponsors sustainability services. He is vegetarian for decades, driving an electric car, and moving to a net zero house. Before getting started, I would like to pass the word to him. Michel?
Yeah, thank you, Faiza, and thanks for inviting me to come to Turkey, or actually not to come to Turkey. It is more sustainable, just working from home. Yes. And joining this session. But I'm very much delighted and honored to discuss Faiza together with you, this important topic. And we know each other from this community at Mazars, right? This global internal audit community, and we are connected on the subject, what we discussed today. And internal audit for good, actually. Yeah? You were already briefly introduced, Faiza, but a few words, and it's good that we do it together, very much appreciate it. You have also quite some background in internal audit, leading the Turkish practice, what I do in the Netherlands, and also active in this international platform we do have. And for good, your organic farming, active in that, and I like to have also dinner with the team later on this food. But that's for later. Now we have more than half an hour discussion with this audience on this great topic. What are we going to do, Faiza, in the next half hour?
Yes, we will discuss today in our session sustainability journey in three main streams. First, we will ask why companies need to become more sustainable. Then in the second section, we will discuss how companies move on their sustainability journey. And in the last section, we will talk about what contribution internal audit can make. So, the first one is why companies need to become more sustainable. You know, every business is different, whether that's in size, ambition, or even geography. But all of them have a connected topic that needs to be addressed: sustainability. To talk about sustainability, we prefer deep diving with an economic model as of donut theory. The donut theory is a visual framework for sustainable development, combining the concept of planetary boundaries with the complementary concept of social boundaries. The name derives from the shape of the diagram. The center hole of the model depicts the proportion of people that lack access to life's essentials, while the crust represents the ecological ceilings that life depends on and must not be overshot. The diagram was developed by University of Oxford economist Kate Raworth, and it proposes a new humanist economic model. The theory is a change of economic model as a response to humanity's major challenge: eradicating global poverty, all within the means of the planet's limited natural resources. In this model, An economy considered prosperous when all 12 social foundations are met without overshooting any of the 9 ecological ceilings. These circumstances coincide with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 SDGs defined by United Nations. The SDGs are gaining global momentum. With just 10 years to go, an ambitious global effort is underway to deliver the 2030 promise. Today, progress is being made in many places, but overall, action to meet the goals is not yet advancing at the speed or scale required. The United Nations Secretary General called on all sectors of society to mobilize for a decade and of action on 3 levels. First one, global action to secure greater leadership, more resources, smarter solutions for SDGs. The second one, local action embedding the needed transitions in policies, budgets, institutions, and regulatory frameworks. And the last one, people action, including youth, civil society, media, private sector, academia, and other stakeholders to generate an unstoppable movement pushing for the required transformations. As UN Deputy General Secretary Amina Mohammed said, we have 10 years left to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. As Kate's report explains, humanity's 21st century challenge is to meet the needs of all within the means of the planet. In other words, to ensure that no one falls short on life's essentials while ensuring that collectively we don't overshoot our pressure on Earth's life supporting systems, on which we fundamentally depend. Donut Economics proposes an economic mindset that fits for the 21st century. It's a way of thinking that brings about the regenerative and distributive dynamics that this century calls for. It is to change the goal from endless GDP growth to thriving in the donut. And it calls for turning today's degenerative economies into regenerative ones, and divisive economies into far more distributive ones. The donut comes first, and money follows. Generally, sustainable companies are also financially successful. As you can see, for creating shared value, we should change our mindset from inside out to outside in, from short term to long term, from shareholders to stakeholders. So it is important to say that planet and people first, profit for scaling up positive impact. Michelle, within the framework of creating shared value, what are the Sustainable Development Goals of United Nations?
Thank you, Faiza, and explaining this donut story. It's very powerful. I don't like donuts, by the way, but this whole thought about the donuts on this topic of sustainability is very illustrative in the people and in the planet side, in the social side. Indeed, and that's also reflected in these 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals established 6 years ago, and you see a lot on the social side, on the society side. Actually, the first 12, like no poverty or gender equality or decent workplaces, etc., to mention a few. So most of these Sustainable Development Goals, which are established, by the way, to give guidance to companies to establish their sustainability strategies. So on which SDGs can I, my firm, my company, make a positive impact to the world? And the last 5, or the 3, 13, 14, and 16, climate action, life below the water, and life on land, these are very much planet related. So the donut is very much reflected in the 17 United Nations, let's say, Sustainable Development Goals, which covers in total 169 targets. and companies are selecting and make it part of their own purpose to make a contribution. Faiza, please, the next slide. This is from a research done on sustainability reporting. So you see on the horizontal axis all the 17 SDGs, and from this research a year ago by the research theme carrots and sticks. And I like that. Carrots is more the incentive to do the good, and the sticks is more probably the penalties and the law to do no harm. But you see that a few are the most reported on. These are on SDG responsible consumption and production. We see also 12 on, that's actually 12, and we have 16 on peace and justice. That's more also on anti-corruption. You see that coming. Climate change, human rights, labor, and that anti-corruption are the most reported topics on, showed by this research. Covered 84 countries, 600 reports. So it's interesting to see that. Faiza, can we go to the next? We are still on why are we doing this? And this is also momentum on climate change. We all know a month ago in the UK, in Glasgow, leaders were joining discussions on how are we making the impact on SDG 13, climate action. And let's hope that in the next research by Carrots and Sticks, that this is sky high in on reporting impact on the climate change. We all need that to save the world. So let's see. And then the next one, Faiza, also when it comes to the World Economic Forum, this is a study report from 21. You see, I'm not going to discuss in detail, but you see that 50% of the top 10 risks in the world relate to environmental risks, like climate, and 20% relate to more the people and the society side. Faiza, how do companies respond to all these challenges and how they can make a good contribution?
Yes, actually in this fast-paced, ever-changing world that we live in, sustainability has shifted from a perceived nice-to-have addition to an essential component for every business, no matter the size. Businesses that attach sustainability as a critical success factor to their board agenda will be the ones that thrive in the future. It's not a matter of compliance or regulation, but an opportunity to create long-term value for all stakeholders in their business. In the new economy, businesses will soon realize that integrating sustainability into their business strategy will help them take advantage of opportunities, better manage risk, increase their appeal for investment. At the same time, they will be helping improve the environment and create a fairer society. It's about driving meaningful change, finding new opportunities, improving overall performance. Businesses that place a priority on sustainability create economic value and contribute to healthy ecosystems and strong communities. Please don't forget, sustainability is not a destination, but an ongoing process through the business life cycle. The world is changing from compliance to impact, from doing no harm to doing good. This is an important materiality. And the pandemic, you know, has aimed a spotlight at the center of corporate sustainability and driving greater awareness around the importance of environmental, social, and governance issues. There is a growing consensus. The role of business within the society has changed. Today, the number of ESG drivers are growing rapidly and propelling companies to act quickly. There are driving forces to act sustainably. For companies, the leadership to show good example on sustainability, we can say. For alliances, business partners are increasingly selective. Clients want to do business with companies having sustainable products, and similarly, companies are selecting sustainable suppliers. For regulator, as you know, European Union issued Corporate Sustainable Reporting Directive and emerging sustainable regulation to drive the company behavior. And at the last point, society at large, we can say communities appreciate community building initiatives from companies. And the global society at large, in regions, certain regions in particular, expect companies to contribute a better world. So, Michel, how business can lead this transformation?
Yeah, so indeed, how companies can make an impact, right, to the better world. And there are a few leaders who are connected. And this person here with this bold hat is Peter Bakker. He is the president and the CEO of the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. About 200 forward-looking, proactive companies across 20, 30 countries or so are organized under this initiative to encourage each other to do good, to have effective strategies on the transformation to become more sustainable. So it's interesting to look at it. Also for yourself, the audience, you go to the website and read about this initiative. Yes. They're organized and they discuss, they work on the better world. And interesting to see that, one back, Faiza. Interesting to see that Peter Bakker, by the way, he was my previous boss. He was the chief CEO of TNT. He wanted to make TNT the first CO2 neutral logistics company in the world. He said once, when I was the head of audit in that company, he said once, auditors will change the world. Interesting, all linked with disclosure. And let's go to the next slide, please, Faiza, where you already touched on the introduction in Europe of the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive that is adopted in April this year in Europe, requiring companies, a lot of companies, to disclose about their sustainability objectives and impact for the first time in 24, referring to their performance over 23. So that is already coming soon, and companies, and then 2 out of 3 of the criteria who have more than 250 employees, a turnover of 40 million euros, or a balance sheet of 20 million euros. So it will cover many more companies than only listed companies, and they are required to do so. And so it is quite an impact for Europe. But the question may also be, what will be the effect for the rest of the world on, let's say, companies to have the obligation not only to report on financial performance to their stakeholders, but also on the sustainability performance, their impact to their objectives, their purpose. The next slide, please, Faiza. So this is just an example of how companies are preparing for that disclosure, or are already working on it based on their intrinsic motivation. 3 phases, if you like. It's first about strategy and the governance. It's also the implementation and the change. Are we effectively implementing all the measures? And then the disclosure, right? In the annual report, including external assurance. That is a requirement from the directive also. And that makes this link with what Peter Bakker said about the external auditors. A few key questions to address. What are the impacts of the business profile of the company in question? What are the risks and opportunities for my business? How to establish an effective governance and supportive culture to do the right things. how to have good processes aligned and have the monitoring and reporting in place. So a lot of change in the company to make it all happen. So you can share your commitments, become a CO2 neutral company. But how to do it in practice is a bit of a challenge, and you need to organize yourself pretty well. Faisal, what's the next slide? I think we move to the internal audit, indeed, for you to open, because the last number 17, partnerships for the goals, the last sustainable SDG from the United Nations, is also an opening for internal audit, and probably you can share a bit of that, Faisal.
Yes, absolutely. For the role of internal audit, it's essential to check internal audit's mission defined by IAA. Internal auditing is an independent, objective assurance and consulting activity designed to add value and improve an organization's operations. It helps an organization accomplish its objectives by bringing a systematic and disciplined approach to evaluate and improve the effectiveness of risk management, control, and governance process. From its definition, internal audit's involvement in the sustainability process is a critical element. Internal audit play a pivotal role in evolving ESG efforts and reshaping the corporate landscape. Boards and executives will increasingly rely on internal audit to determine the organization's ESG maturity level, identify opportunities to improve it, and understand how ESG can enhance organizational performance and value. As a result of this, internal audit has an important role in keeping with its position as the leading voice for internal audit worldwide. The IAA believes internal audit can play at least 4 critical roles: being a change agent for integrated thinking in the organization. Second one, participating in the project team to provide guidance to implementation plans and performance. Third one, providing assurance on the accuracy and reliability of the information. And the last one, partnering with external assurance providers to ensure that engagement is performed efficiently, reliably, and cost-effectively. As Peter Becker said, if external auditors will change the world, but with the role, position, and capability of IA, there is a great opportunity and growing expectation for internal audits to contribute. And for the growing momentum towards increased organizational disclosure of environmental, social, and governance information, internal audit has a pivotal role to play in driving organizational value related to these issues. As Anthony Pugliese, president of IAA, said, organizational value is going to be affected by these disclosures. Relevant to this issue, IAA published a white paper in May 2021 on internal audit's role in ESG reporting. The white paper provides guidance to internal auditors to perform assurance and advisory work on ESG reporting. One of the major functions of the internal audit unit is to give an assurance on the effectiveness of the sustainability reporting. So, firstly, review reporting metrics for relevancy, accuracy, review reporting for consistency with formal financial disclosure filings, conduct materiality and risk assessment on ESG reporting, and finally, incorporate ESG into regular audit plans. For advisory side, internal audit function can help management build a proper sustainability environment. They can recommend sustainability frameworks to manage ESG risks and can also recommend reporting metrics. Internal audit can add value by assessing the feasibility and credibility of the company's sustainability strategies and objectives and evaluating the quality of these sustainability policies, procedures, and controls. To summarize, internal audit can support management in answering relevant questions such as, do we have a clear view on all ESG risks? Do we have a proper ESG culture that goes hand in hand with our ESG initiatives? And do we measure ESG activities based on KPIs linked to the ESG strategy? And do we report in a controlled, reliable way? So as a result, internal audit has an important role to reshape the corporate landscape. And when we turn our attention to the risks that await us, we observe that rising sustainability regulations is a hot topic. The Risk in Focus report is the product of collaboration between 12 IAA bodies in Europe and conveys an insightful summary of how COVID-19 has impacted the profession, but also paints a vivid portrait of where the profession finds itself as the world slowly emerges for this extraordinary global experience. There are key findings. First one, climate change has been rising up in the agenda, climbing 4 positions in the rankings, seeing a 41% increase and putting in the top 10 for the first time. The IAA recommends that organizations consider climate change a forever risk and act to defend against this by ensuring climate change and sustainability is central to the organization's values, and establishing sustainability goals that align with the United Nations 17 SDGs. Within internal audit perspective, there are questions to be asked relevant to these rising sustainability regulations. For instance, is internal audit providing assurance over the translation of relevant sustainability regulations? Is the organization aware of its sustainability reporting requirements? And do the data and statements disclosed in non-financial reporting accurately reflect the activities of the company? How well developed is the governance? And these kind of questions are existing for internal audit. Michelle, is internal audit focused on climate risk?
Yeah. Good question. I think they need to do more. Thanks for sharing these great papers from the IAA. Everyone is encouraged to look at that. Climate risk. This was a research done by the IAA in the Netherlands earlier this year, which shows that about 80% of the internal auditors believe no, it's 60%. Let me see, I'm now a bit confused. Now, the research shows that 60% of the internal auditors in the Netherlands consider climate change and environmental risk as a key priority for the audit plan. They are preparing for that, but 4 out of 5, that is the 80% here, 4 out of 5 indicate they are still insufficiently informed to review the risk. So there's a bit of a gap when it comes to the capability of internal auditors to review this priority, but they recognize it as a priority. That is a bit the status, what we see in the Netherlands, and it may be an indication for the rest of Europe or the rest of parts of the world. Faiza, can we go to the next slide, please? This is a research from Canada. Just briefly, at the right bottom of the slide, it shows that 2/3 of internal audit heads indicate that ESG related issues is not yet part of the internal audit plan. That is a bit less compared to the example from Europe we just have shown. Just to illustrate. Now we go to a bit more content on the role of internal audits. Faisal, can we go to the next slide? Thank you. These steps, we have seen it as an example of response of a company on the directive in Europe for sustainability reporting. And it depends a bit where the company is to see what your role could be as an internal auditor. When we go from right to left, it is more easy, it will become more difficult, more challenging to take your role. So when the company is already well organized, well matured on sustainability, if they just do reporting and external assurance, you can have your role on the reporting piece and the coordination of work with the external auditor. But the other side, when the company is just becoming aware that I need to make the change, what are you then doing as an internal auditor? It very much depends also on your reputation and your ambition, but there are opportunities you can do for good. You can make an impact, to be more a catalyst, and to engage with colleagues and to motivate your colleagues to make a step forward on sustainability. And build your alliances. Be proactive. Take your role. You can still be that auditor, to be objective and independent, etc. But you can play that role. Maybe a catalyst for the change. And when it comes to implementation and change, I think that's the core piece of internal audit. I would say many companies which are a bit in the middle, they're working on it, but they can be really enhanced on the way they do it. There, as an internal auditor, you can really do good assessments, good reviews, quick scans, whatever, engagement with the management to provide objective insights and challenge and recommendations to enhance the implementation effectiveness of sustainability strategies. So this just in a nutshell, but the role of an internal auditor should fit the purpose and the phase the company is in. And that is what this picture illustrates. Faisa, to close it, can you probably briefly share with the audience what the key success factors are of the internal audit?
Sure. For the question about the factors that determine the successful auditing, the research by IAA Netherlands in July 2021 gives an important vision to us about key factors. According to this research, the most important fact is support from top management. Main key success factor on covering climate change and environmental risks in IA scope and approach is the support from senior management. If that support is there, CCE will generally also have been included in the strategy of the organization. And we see in the third line, as you can see on the screen, the need for standard models. When we ask ourselves about the other success factors to start, we can say the most important point: support raising awareness in the organization and look for allies. Besides this, first, the executive board and audit committee should be involved, discuss role and service of internal audit function. For implementation side, we can say as success factors to support a knowledge group and start small and experiment. Don't start an assurance provider. It's step by step. And aligning auditing approach to these risks may be embedded as a part of an existing audit. I guess these steps will take so much further your companies in this sustainability journey. And Michelle, I guess we are closing our presentation. We will be glad to answer if exist any questions before closing our presentation.